I love her song too. This is Trollmor Svukevise, which is a Swedish song, but basically it's all Scandinavian. Everyone in Scandinavia has heard this at some point of their childhood, so this is sort of, I guess, one of our things to kind of keep it a bit localized and representative of our culture. I think a lot of the design of the house is also thought of like, let's keep kind of inspiration by how kind of we saw things when we were kids. So there's no cell phones, you know. It's quite timeless, the design. It's nothing pointing. There's not too much pointing to a specific era.
Can you see your reflection?
And you see the mother, this is really beautiful. Like, I think we got this in 2 weeks before release, and like it really made
a memory.
And you see the mother, this is really beautiful. Like, I think we got this in 2 weeks before release, and it really made like, first it used to just be the memory things that your mother would, you know, had to be introduced to in level 0, but this, like, the posture really made with her sitting there. Yeah. And you got reminded of her so well too, I think.
Yeah, the imagination objects that you pick up, the ones that were presented in the first level, they used to just float here alone and with no connection to anything. But as soon as we added the mother post there, it really connected it a lot more to the story, and the player understood that these objects are important in some way.
Are you all right? Whoa. What is this place?
So now we have entered the what we call the hub level. This is the level that you visit every time that you finish the chapters of Among the Sleep. And here we wanted to really show the world when it starts crossing over to the more surreal. So you have a floating island of rock and some pipes.
Floating in the void.
Yeah, floating in the void in the middle of nothing, and then you come to this warm and nice playhouse. So it has this introduces the surreal aspect, the more dreamlike aspect of the game.
And Teddy is walking around like in the tutorial. We kind of decided that Teddy should walk around when it's safe, and therefore it's kind of only this area after the zero that you can actually see him walking around. Sort of to not make him overpowered, and to make you feel a bit more alone also when it's scary.
At the same time, we also knew that we had to have him walk around in this level, otherwise he would be too distant. You would never see him, only except for when you hold Teddy in your arms using the Teddy Light ability, you would never see him. So we found it very important in order to give him character, that he would be walking around in this hub level.
A playhouse? What's that doing here?
And we also wanted the hub to be a lot more relaxed in between the scary levels, so that the player would have a short time to just breathe and play in a comfortable environment.
Is it locked? I might be able to open it from the inside if you help me up. Whoa, look at this place. Listen. There it is again. It sounds like it's coming from behind this door. There must be a way to open it. It seems like these are connected somehow. Maybe it requires some sort of key. Is there anything we can use?
Yeah, so this is the only place in the game where the player can see his progression. Because here you have these canisters for the objects that you collect in the levels, and you can see here already that you are missing 3 of them. So this is something we added to both to showcase the objects that you had found and to give the player a sense of progression through the game.
What happened? Why didn't it open? Let's find a way to open it. What did you find? It's rather small, but it looks like my paws might fit. Aha! It's a button. That's it. It seems like the memory you share with her unlocked the door. Maybe if we can find more memories like this, it might bring us to her. It looks like we need 3 more. I wonder where this will take us. And to be honest, it scares me a bit. But don't worry, I'll do my best to keep you safe. Pick me up whenever you're ready to go.
In this small area, after you open the door in the hub, you can see, you can get a sort of a small taste of what the setting of the next chapter will be like.
Cool. That's level hub. Level 2. You know what I like best about this level is that what I hate the most is the first thing you see, which is a xylophone. I really don't like that. But
it is a bit cool though, as it's a xylophone
bridge later, or it's a reference to a thing that comes later in the same chapter.
Oh yeah, but okay, yeah, that's true. Well, it makes a funny sound. That's true.
Oh, how come you don't like the?
Because I don't like the sound.
Oh, I think it's awesome. Just the to like we talked about earlier, that the game is so heavily based on physics. It's definitely been a challenge to make it, and it's caused several problems. But it also just gives a really good physical feel of the whole of the whole game, and just being able to throw an object like this, the xylophone, and hear the sound as it just hits the ground and bounces. I think it's really good. It was big challenge to make this level scary because it contains no physical monster, and since it's so open, we wanted to create a level where the player could had a main objective with several sub goals, which could be completed in any order. And also, since this is not inside of a house or anything like that, it's an open playground. We found that it was a lot harder to make it scary, just because players aren't afraid of something jumping out from around a corner or something like that. So it was definitely a challenge, and I also think this is the least scary level of the game.
This level was originally just kind of a bridge from reality to fantasy. So it was really short, and you just walked in one door and out another through a tunnel. And it sort of grew as we worked on it and turned into this playground level.
Yes, or yeah, that's the start, I guess. At the point, we divided a few of the remaining chapters in the game to different people, and we just went off to get started on some stuff creatively. And yeah, that was way back when this was the transition between reality and fantasy, and not its own chapter. And it's been through so many phases since then.
Well, this doesn't look too bad. I hope the memory is close by.
Right here is probably my favorite thing about this level is the fire flowers. Like, there's ones who rise up from the ground and ones who are actually on the ground, and they both have like this kind of wind chimey sound when you walk on them. Sort of like, it's kind of like they are small bells or something. And that's one of the few things that I actually really like about the audio in the end. These are so subtle and kind of magical, yet kind of concrete, because you actually are bumping into these flowers.
It's important to note also how different this is in terms of setting and theme from the first level of the game, the house. This is, yeah, after the hub level, you have a transition to this completely far out, magical, almost fairy tale like type of environment. You're suddenly in a cave with glowing flowers, and there's a abandoned playground.
It's been huge changes and small ones. Like, for instance, the owl you see by the carousel. I think that one took a lot of iterations because people didn't notice it, and then we kind of had this kind of flame that you kind of see vaguely now, but it was too bright, so people thought it was dangerous, so they didn't want to touch it. And it was kind of we used a lot of time to kind of tweak it so it would seem easy to see yet safe to touch. I remember quite a few testers commenting like either they didn't notice it or it was too scary.
Well, I really like the cave level because like it's just an enormous cave and the lighting is fantastic, I think. Especially when you enter the big cave room. You can see so much like geometry and buildings and stuff, and the lighting is just perfect, I think.
Whoa, over there. It looks like another memory across that bridge.
So there's a couple of things about this whole room. We wanted to quickly introduce the end goal, which is the playground castle in the background, which is what you want to reach at the end, and also present the means for you to get there, which is the bridge from the tower over to the castle. And then we had to limit the player from being able to just go there straight away, which turned into this seesaw puzzle where you have to collect the owls around the playground and place them in their nest before you can actually climb up the tower.
It's a lot of sounds being triggered on the slide, so you take away a lot of the children's sounds when you slide down, so it's more vague. When you're down here, they sound like they're far away, whereas when you're up there, it sounds like they are down here. So it's kind of wanted to give impressions that there were little kids around in a way, but not really around you. This whole place is about loneliness for me, this whole level.
Is there a way up this tower?
The theme of a child's imagination was very interesting to work with, but also proved some challenges to appear. For instance, in level 2, you are collecting these owls, which is placed in something that looks like a nest on one end of a seesaw. The idea was that the child thinks that these owls are heavy enough to keep the weight of the seesaw down so that the child can climb onto the climbing tower. And because this is the child's perception of reality, then that is the reality. And I think that idea is very cool. The problem with it is that this is not something that is in any way, shape or form explained within the game, and so that a lot of people just don't understand. So when they are confronted with the task of, hey, you need to get these owls and bring them back here, then since people don't understand that whole thought process of it, it just becomes, oh, I have to collect these random items and that's going to help me up. So it felt to people, or to some people at least, it felt like just a stupid or a nonsensical fetch quest. But it did actually have what I think is a pretty cool little backstory to it. And there were many of these situations that we wanted to do something really weird and crazy just because we were able to play around with a child's imagination. But it turned challenging to communicate this with our players.
The level is divided into two halves, with the first part where it's daylight and cozy and you hear the sounds of children playing, and it's a rather uplifting atmosphere. And then halfway through, or pretty early, I guess, it all changes and becomes dark, and that's when we want the player to feel tense and to be afraid of going into the parts of the level that he can't see, even though there's nothing there, which was a problem for some players.
Now we're at the shed, and so far the level has been very not threatening, completely different from, well, more similar to the intro to the tutorial level than the scary dark level 1. But here we wanted to surprise the player by having the player to go into the shed and pick up the owl, and then you would hear the sound of footsteps, children running, and then the door being slammed and then shut, and then it would open after a while, and the setting would have been completely changed.
I'm just really proud or pleased with the transition when you enter the shed, pick up the owl, and you feel so trapped and abandoned, just alone. The shift in atmosphere there is super effective, I think. I'm just really proud or pleased with the transition when you enter the shed, pick up the owl, and you feel so trapped and abandoned and just alone. And the shift in atmosphere there is super effective, I think. And I love that moment.
Now we're at the shed, and so far the level has been very not threatening, completely different from, well, more similar to the intro to the tutorial level than the scary dark level 1. But here we wanted to surprise the player by having the player to go into the shed and pick up the owl, and then you would hear the sound of footsteps, children running, and then the door being slammed and then shut, and then it would open after a while, and the setting would have been completely changed.
We changed a lot of things, like a lot of sounds, a lot of lighting, I know, and it becomes really airy. All the children stop making a fuss, and the girl starts crying.
The level is divided into two halves, with the first part where it's daylight and cozy, and you hear the sounds of children playing, and it's a rather uplifting atmosphere. And then halfway through, or pretty early, I guess, it all changes and becomes dark, and that's when we want the player to feel tense and to be afraid of going into the parts of the level that he can't see, even though there's nothing there, which was a problem for some players.
tell us about saving, loading, and stuff.
Well, basically for about maybe 1 or 1.5 years we had no saving whatsoever, and then we had to add that to the game because it was a feature we really needed. So yeah, so basically we added that like, way too late into production, and there was like the game was not prepared at all for loading from any stage, so we had to do a lot of work to make that a possibility, and then we had to test it a lot and find all the weird bugs, like loading from a specific point in the game and maybe a chair was not positioned correctly, so you'd get stuck in a door or something. Yeah.
So saving, loading is something you would recommend people maybe to start from the beginning with, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so useful to just have it always. It makes it easier to test from like a specific point in the level as well.
So what do you sort of, when you was working with saving and loading, there was a lot of, I know there was a lot of sounds that were probably not quite well described, I guess. But was there anything else, or was the sound the main purpose of it?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of sounds, like, so you'd have an audio trigger that you were meant to walk into, and maybe it was called like sound 01, and it's really difficult to know what that sound actually is. And I don't know if, like, is that sound meant to be turned off when you load from this point, or is it not? It's impossible to tell sometimes. So I had to punch the audio guy a bit every now and then. In level 2, the cave level, there's a chest with a rock on top of it, and you need to well, there's a wheel stuck on a branch that you need to remove from the branch and have it collide with the rock. And it used to be more complex, but it never really worked, so we had to make it as simple as it is in the game right now. And it's just not that fun because it's so easy. And I wish we could have had more time to implement that properly, the way it was originally meant to be.
Do you guys remember how many times or how bad the wires or rope physics bugged out? I think that ropes have gone through 5-6 iterations of using different systems and making systems ourselves and just trying it to get to behave properly. And I guess the final version here is quite subtle and works quite well, but it's just
totally worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. It's just a minor detail that makes the entire game worth playing, right?
I think we spent about 1 year to get the rope physics right.
Good thing we use it everywhere in the game.
That's kind of a thing that when you develop a game and you don't know what you're doing, you end up spending so much time trying out stuff, and it's really healthy, and of course you need to experiment, but after a while you kind of I think everyone lost a lot of their killed their darlings basically because it didn't work in the end, or it didn't fit with the overall narrative or anything. But that's definitely something interesting we learned from developing this game. It's just so many things you need to try out to make a game, and so many things that probably won't make it.